Hey you guys, I am welcoming myself back to my channel. I'm welcoming you back to my channel, and I am over 1 year vegan. Yes, I did it. I went ahead and I just took the plunge and I did it. And I'm also proud to announce that my older sister and my niece also went vegan. I believe my sister went vegan about a month ago, and then my niece went vegan about a month and a half ago. So I actually went vegan in 2020, and I believe it was around August or September. It might have been late August, early September, but it was pretty much around that time. Of course, we were all pretty much in quarantine and in lockdown, and I was in quarantine for some time. And then after the 4th of July, I just went ahead and did like a local staycation at a variety of cities in my areas, hotels, inns, whatever, and wined and dined myself until I moved to where I am now in a desert with family. And I would say that the last straw for me, and sometimes these things have to force you into these decisions, was me ordering pancakes from Denny's at 11:30 at night. And that was the last time. And when I woke up the next morning, my stomach was a mess, and it was, yeah, it was the last straw. It was to the point where I pretty much was down for about 3 days, where I couldn't even really get out of bed with like stomach cramps and bloating and all of those things. And I said, okay. So I took the next 21 days and I just cleansed all of that mess out of my gut. I drank a lot of distilled water, a lot of mineral water. I made lime water. I had kombucha, green tea, ginger tea, some green juice. And what I began to do was introduce one ingredient legumes. Like I pretty much was doing like lentils and chickpeas for a certain while. I did roasted garlic. What else did I do? I don't know. But I pretty much cut everything out and I did a whole reset. That's pretty much what I did. But before I get into the details of that and how I progressed from last year till now, I want to go back a little bit further because for me, nutrition, diet, all of these things have been quite a journey since childhood. So even during the shutdown, like many of us, I had a lot of time to like think about things in hindsight. And as I was thinking about my personal health from a child till now, I realized that I always dealt with constipation since I was a toddler. And then also, like, maybe at that time I didn't consider myself like kind of sickly, like not sick all the time, but because of the constipation, there were times I remember when I was young where it's like my stomach would hurt me, and I could look at old pictures and see that I was like small, but that my belly was just like bloated and like popped out over my jeans, and I was only like 5 or 6. Something was definitely going on then. And then I got my cycle at 8, and I realized way later on, that's crazy, guys. I know that's crazy. Like, literally, I got my period at 8. 8, guys. 8 years old. Can you believe that? Anybody else that early? Put it down in the comment section, okay? Um, and so I knew at a certain point maybe in my early 20s that, well, the realization came that I had like a hormonal and chemical imbalance, which I still do and which I still maintain. Now, speaking of the cycle and going on from there into teenage years, um, my cycle was it just made me sick every month. I actually realized that like I would get a virus every month. I would like throw up. Oh my gosh, I had the worst cramps. I would throw up, everything. And I thought to myself as a teenager, I was like, this is what all women go through. I was like, this is the period. This is what all women go through when they have a period. They all get sick. They all throw up. They all, whatever. It's crazy. Um, and I'll say something about that towards the end of the video. That is another realization that I had maybe just this year. And so, but then I would realize, like, because I would take Advil, I would do like those normal things, and I would realize that when I had a grapefruit, a whole grapefruit, I would eat a grapefruit, my cramps would go away. I also had acne when I was very, very young, my whole life. Some of the products that I would use a lot was like Noxzema. I've used Clean and Clear. I've used soaps, Ivory soaps. I mean, talking about from single digit teenage years to adult years, vitamin E, natural things. I've used a lot of skincare products, even going to the department store to get skincare collections or lines, going to Limburg nutrition store to get like the mud mask and witch hazel. I mean, just all kind of things. But again, back to my diet. In junior high school, I started with cutting out fried chicken. I cut out soda. And then in high school, I really became like into water, and I started drinking like carrot juice, and I just started getting into things because as I was doing my research, I figured that my diet would play a huge role in in how my skin would improve. But not only that, when it came to my cycle, I realized that I was a huge tea drinker in junior high school. Growing up as a kid, huge tea drinker. But the more tea I would drink, whenever my cycle came about, my cramps would not be as bad. If I wasn't having like comforty foods, like greasy, cheesy, or meaty foods, my cramps would not be as bad and my cycle would not be as bad. So basically what I'm saying is everything was like a part of the process. It was very progressive, right? I remember going vegetarian exactly when I was 12, and I was vegetarian for a whole year when I was 12. It was a good experience, no issues with that. And then after a year, I went back to eating normal. I've always loved vegetables. My mom, when she was pregnant with me and my brother, she loved vegetables. She ate a lot of vegetables. She was definitely into health and fitness. She played basketball. She ran track, all of those kind of things. And so I feel like that just carried over to me. Like as a little kid, I love vegetables. I wasn't one of those kids where there was like, eat your broccoli and I don't want to. But no, I love my broccoli. I love peas, green beans, string beans, and everything. So good. So when I looked back at all of those things, I could see what was beneficial to me in the past and what was not. And then I also had a major realization last year when I was thinking about diet in hindsight, because for some of you that have followed me even a few years back, about 6 or 7 years back, when I was finally diagnosed with the tumors and I had the surgery and I was bleeding out and I almost died and all this kind of stuff. Um, After that, these notions began to come to me that one, my metabolism is not very fast, and it never has been. Um, I was always active. Like, I danced when I was very young. I started military drill when I was 10, got into ballet when I was 15, danced throughout junior high, high school, danced in college, also would do a lot of fitness and do track and all of these things. And I would say that as long as I was being active, then I was able to keep my weight down, right? Um, the first weight gain for me began second semester of 8th grade when one of my uncles was married to a Guatemalan. And I remember when we all went out there to the house for Christmas. It was my first Guatemalan Christmas. When we talk about a Guatemalan breakfast, it was my first time having like the tortillas with the beans and the eggs and the avocados. And I literally started gaining weight second semester of 8th grade. And from that point, I had dealt with my weight for the rest of my life. But before that, nothing triggered my weight. So there was literally something like in that holiday time that literally triggered weight gain, which is interesting. And I think it's something that people should look into. But then I thought about a sector of time in my life before then, when I was only 100 pounds and didn't really have any issues. And I tell you, literally, like junior high school, this is pretty much what my diet consisted of. Cup of tea in the morning. Then I go to school, get dropped off. I would not eat anything the whole day. Then we all get back home, me, my brother, my cousins, and we all have our dinner. So I pretty much had a cup of tea for breakfast and one meal for dinner. And that I didn't know. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I was not hungry. I did not have any cravings. I ate too much candy in junior high and high school. I ate too much candy. But literally, when I thought about this, I was like, I was never hungry. I was like, the cup of tea did it for me. And then the one meal a day was it. And I literally didn't even think about weight or anything. I still thought I was fat because of the issue that I have in my uterus that I didn't know was an issue at the time when I was like 11 and 12. But that's pretty much what it was. And so last year when I thought about this, I was like, even when I was in school, because, I graduated last year, I graduated in 2019. And there were times where I was just like, I don't think my body can take so much food. My metabolism is slow. I used to watch my BOs and be like, this is like I'm all backed up, right? And so, just to bring everything forward, finally, I had a last go at these pancakes, which I know I'm not supposed to have because I already know. It's like I knew what I had been through during my illness with the gluten, and like I knew that I was not supposed to have gluten. But finally, I did it. And after the 21 days, I was pretty strict because you can gain weight on a vegan diet. You can. And when I tell you, my body literally just shrunk down to its own natural way. I did not go back to the gym when the gym opened up. I told myself I just wanted to have natural motion, natural action. I moved into the realm of doing more stretching, more centered things like breathing and meditation, and just making sure that like my joints and my limbs and my muscles were all stretched out, and that I was maintaining my flexibility. That whenever I had the opportunity, if I was going to the store or just somewhere, that I would park as far away as I could in the parking lot and get in those extra steps. I also started spending more time like in the mountains, and doing like stone stepping or doing a little bit of hiking. And then also, whatever place I was staying at, if there were stairs, I would take the stairs over the elevator. So I was just doing those things in natural everyday living, and being mindful that whenever I got the opportunity to, work out, that I would do that. So, in future videos, I am going to definitely show recipes, because I've fallen into a routine that I think is like really cool. And I'm actually pretty strict, because veganism, yes, but I am still blood type index. I am still gluten free. I am still what? I don't like, I was vegetarian before, and so I wasn't even eating red meat. Like, I hadn't had red meat in, I don't know what, 5 years. I hadn't had ribs since 2005. So I was already off of that stuff anyway. So it made the transition even easier. And I would say like the first 6 months was pretty experimental, because you're learning a lot about alternatives to what you normally have, right? So let me get a little bit of detailed in what happened once I became vegan. So I talked about lentils, I talked about chickpeas. Now, this is, food can be very scientific, because what you have to know is that there are things that provide good flora, good bacteria for the intestines alone. So even when you're cleaning out, you can still have issues if you don't restore your intestinal walls with the things that they need to digest whatever you take in properly. And that's the proper acid, the proper bacteria, and which creates good flora. So I started introducing things very slowly, having like cans of organic chickpeas and lentils, usually maybe lightly salted or unsalted. I cut out a lot of sugar. There are definitely some really good like gluten-free and vegan baked goods, which I have to have both. Sometimes there's only one or the other, but what I realized going vegan and cleaning out at the cellular level, because that's what it is, people don't realize that everything about the health of our body is at the cellular level. So I learned that, each cell in our body is like a room, okay? And every room has a capacity. Just like my bedroom, I can only fit so many people in here. So when the cells are filled up with toxicity, there is no room for the things that it actually really needs. So you actually have to filter out the cells. You have to tell all those people who are in the room that are toxic that they need to leave, so that you can start letting non-toxic people into the cells, just kind of like our lives, right? So once I realized that, I took to a lot of distilled water. And yes, I know that there have been studies about distilled water in the 70s. I've talked about this before, but I will tell you, there is a process to water as well. And people need to watch how much alkaline water they drink, how much mineral water they drink, quality mineral water. But a lot of people don't know that they also need to take in some distilled water as well. Now, the reason why I say this is this. The distilled water literally removes everything. It removes everything. If you want to really like flush out, you're going to need distilled water. Now, people say, don't drink distilled water, drink mineral water. But guess what? You need to flush out, and then you need to replenish with your mineral water. Because, again, if the room is already full, how many minerals are you really going to fit? That's what you need to do. So you need to flush. You need to flush. Sometimes people juice on top of toxicity in the cells. Sometimes they work out and they're active on top of that, but you need to flush at the cellular level. I can tell for me, and it's different for everyone, when I need to replenish with minerals. Otherwise, distilled water has been my number one and always has been. I realized last year, I was like, I've been drinking distilled water for 20 years. Once I learned about distilled water in college when I was studying fashion design, and we was working with a particular medium of paint where you could only mix it with distilled water. If you mix it with other stuff that was impure, it would mess up the molecular structure of the paint. So then I learned distilled water is best for steamers and irons, because why? You don't want the metals and all of the toxicities in tap water to go into your fabrics and discolor your fabrics and different things like that. So that was also another thing that I learned about distilled water. And I said, well, if it's the most sanitized and purest form of water, then it will actually help to sanitize my body and flush out and clarify my cells. So 20 years ago, started drinking distilled water, and I still do up until this day. At this point, I am 42 years old. Yay! My birthday's coming up next year, but this year I made 42, and people like when I started saying it, because for a while in school, I'd be like, oh, I'm not going to tell anybody how old I am. I promise you, my classmates, you ask any of them that's like normal college age, many of them were like, 22, 23, 25. You have a lot of people that go back to college that's retired. Some of my older friends that I met that are like late 50s, 60s. And so there was a wide variety of ages with me going back to school. But my classmates would be like, oh, you're 26. Like literally everyone would be like, you're 26. Everyone. And when I thought about it, I was like, when you continue to clarify your cells, because they replicate, right? Like our body is regenerative. I was like, I wonder if the distilled water is part of what is helping my youthfulness. I really thought about this, and I can't prove anything, but it's just right now, it's hypothetical, right? But then I was like, okay, so for a while, I was like avoiding mineral water, and I knew that someone online has suggested the mountain spring water, which they have at like Mother's Market, they have at Whole Foods, they have at Sprouts as well. And I was like, okay, well, I'll start adding in the spring water, and I could absolutely feel a difference. So I will go back to saying, me knowing my body and knowing when I'm starting to feel deficient, that's the thing, becoming more and more aware of the things that you take in, and knowing when I feel clarified is when I might start to feel deficient. And the way that you know this is like, you might start having like a mild irritable feeling, kind of like a mild nagging feeling. And it's not anything like major, right? It just says to me that I know, okay, like, let me rejuvenate, let me restore, and I'll get my mountain spring mineral water and take that, drink that, and I will absolutely feel the hydration fill up my cells. I can feel it. So you want to make sure that your cells are clarified enough so that when you begin to fill it with green juice, that the absorption is good. So now let's talk about absorption. Guys, going vegan, clarifying, oh my gosh. When you eat the meat, when you eat the dairy, when you have the sugars, when your cellular rooms are full of toxicity, that your absorption is minimal. This is why, and I realized when they will always talk about us taking like supplements and tablets and capsules and stuff, and like data will always show where you don't absorb 100% of like the vitamin C you take, or like the, I don't know, bilderberry capsule or something that you take. And I realized the way absorption works is you will absorb more when there is more room in your cellular rooms. So again, if you have inflammation in your muscles and you have more fat around your organs and your cellular walls are inflamed, because that's where the inflammation comes from. Remember guys, everything is cellular. The red blood cells, the white blood cells, is all carried through our arteries, which is our freeways, and it goes to the organs that it needs to go to. Excuse me. Talking. And so everything is carried through those blood cells. So I noticed going vegan, being more clarified, completely slimming down, the inflammation going away, my absorption was more. The things that I took in was absorbed more. The mineral water that I took in, I absorbed more minerals. And get this, you gotta watch your sugar. I am pretty much at this point, like, I would say like 98% sugar free, because I realized, and again, y'all, my issue with coffee, I had to find a coffee substitute, in which I did find one, and I'll show you guys in another video. I did find a coffee substitute, but I realized that what was keeping me up and like making me do this was the syrups. Like if I went to my places like Pete's, or I stopped going to Starbucks, but I was going to Pete's, I was going to Bixby Coffee, I was going to like Blue Bottle is bomb, Earth Cafe has good coffee. Also, sometimes I had discovered this place called Clatch Coffee last year during the quarantine. They were really good. And I realized that it's the flavoring, the absorption of the flavoring was too much. So at this point now, when it comes to coffee, I'm fully decaf, which has been a huge help. And I don't have to have the coffee because I've found a lot of alternatives in like pea protein, mocha, teachino, hazelnut, vanilla nut, which is actually a tea, but it is a coffee substitute. I tell you, I searched and searched and searched, y'all. I had to, because I had to get my fix, okay? And then I would say that I started drinking coffee just like a latte, no flavoring. And I noticed the difference. I was able to sleep okay, because it's not necessarily the coffee itself, because coffee in many ways can be beneficial to us. It's all the other stuff. So I slept just fine if I had like coffee and oat milk and it was unsweetened. And then I noticed that my absorption cycle is a 12-hour cycle. So I might have coffee in the morning, and I told myself, oh, I'm just going to have it like early. Like if I have it at like 8, I should be good by the time it's the evening time. So the 12-hour cycle, I would really start to feel the caffeine like 12 hours later, like in the nighttime, and I wouldn't be able to get to sleep. So mostly I would say that was a progress. That was like a process in the beginning, dealing with my weakness. You know, we all have a weakness. Some people are like, I can't give up cheese. I love cheese. But, you know, I didn't really have an issue with cheese because I didn't like any yellow cheeses anyway. I only liked white cheeses, and I liked Mexican cajote, or something that I would just like sprinkle over like my pasillas. But I was aware of Daya, which I mean, I like Daya. Some people are like, oh, I don't like Daya. But I did try a chow cheese just this weekend at my sister and niece's house, and that was like pretty decent. But the truth of the matter is, like, I do not desire like cheese if I don't really need it. I don't desire any kind of like meat substitute, no Beyond, no Impossible, no anything. And so let's see. I think for the most part, the first 6 months, like I said, was like super experimental. And I pretty much slimmed down, and I wasn't even eating salad, you guys. I was like barely eating vegetables. The legumes, let me tell you, the lentils, the chickpeas literally flattened my stomach out. I was doing like also refried beans, like vegetarian refried beans, and just like having some beans and letting that be the foundation, flatten my stomach out. Bloating gone. Like 2 inches of bloating off of my waist in the first 21 days when I did that. I mean, I was like mind blown. I was like, this is what I should have done, but I said, I see now this is a game changer. Less cramping. Now, let me tell you guys what I did, because I was keeping a journal so that I can understand what certain things did to my body. Now, so at one point, after taking a break pretty much from everything, I went to my spot, 85 degree, oh yes, 85 degree bakery, bomb coffee, bomb whatever, which I can't even eat anymore. I did like a pretty much like old school habit thing. So there's these like 4 baked goods that I like at 85 degree, and then I get like my hazelnut latte with soy milk, right? So I was like, okay, I have been doing really good. I have become so super regular, like it was all good. And I had my little danishes, and usually I just like eat them back to back or whatever. And I had my coffee, and I was on my way to my office. I realized I got constipated, and I said, for me, it is the gluten that constipates me. It's the gluten. And it's normally in like the sweet, doughy danishes and things like that that constipates me. Then what else did I realize? Right, with the sugar, syrups, any kind of things like that, any sweets, the sugar is over absorption, and it makes me a little a little too hyper, okay? So I had to like wean myself off the sugar. What else? What else did I notice? Oh, of course, green juices. You have to watch juices, and you have to watch the sugar. I found some really cool green juices that like are unsweetened. I prefer the bitter. You know what I'm saying? It's like, don't sweeten my green juice, okay? I prefer the bitter green juice. It's just better. More so ones like the celery juice that have a little bit of like lemon juice in it is perfect, because celery is water-based, but it's also very fibrous. What else? Lime water. Oh my goodness. Lime water is so good. Of course, for the intestines, and it also really opens up the respiratory passage very nicely for breathing. I love that. Lemon water, of course. What else? I don't even do as much oatmeal as I used to growing up. Oatmeal was a huge staple for me, but every now and then I might make some oatmeal with maple, but otherwise I don't even do that. So it's interesting, because there's like a lot of things that I don't even eat anymore, and it works out just fine. Ooh, here's another thing that I discovered that I do love in the morning. So I was always attuned to buckwheat, a while back. And whenever me and my friend group over the years would go to Roscoe's, I would get like the buckwheat waffles, which never were an issue to me. No bloating, anything. And then I would get a side of greens. So I would say I discovered cream of buckwheat at Sprouts. Oh my gosh. Game changer. I love it. I mean, I tell you, this journey like in veganism really is a journey of discovery. It really is. And that I have fallen in love with because the buckwheat is plant-based. It's from plants anyway. If you've seen a buckwheat, I know we had went to Big Bear once, me and my bestie, and we stopped by the side of the road and grabbed like a couple of like little buckwheat flowers or whatever. But yeah, it's pretty much a plant, even though it has the word wheat in it. What else? Let's see. Gluten. Oh, okay. So I realized like there was a point where I reintroduced a little bit of dairy, right? Like it might have been, did I have something with cheese? I don't know, whatever it was, but it was something with like real dairy. So with the dairy, immediately mucus in my sinuses. So I could see what each thing was doing to my body. Gluten, constipation, dairy, creating the mucus in the nasal passage. I was like, okay, see, it's like when you are away from like certain things and you cut out things and then you go back to it, you realize that's the point where you realize and you become fully aware of how it is affecting your body. And when you do foods a la carte, then you realize like, oh, this food does this, that food does this. Maybe too much sodium, not drinking enough water causes this. And so what else? Let me think. Oh, yeah. Okay, so let me talk about this. This was very key in me discovering so much more about veganism and plant-based food. So last year, everyone knows I'm a huge fan of Billie Eilish. And last year, her mom started this initiative called Support and Feed, which I immediately supported because I was like, this is actually a really good concept. The whole goal was for her to try to save plant-based restaurants to support and also make it to where they can make a whole bunch of meals for disadvantaged neighborhoods, frontline workers, Skid Row residents, and different things like that. And so, living in LA, I could not believe that I did not know of all of these vegan restaurants, like Vegan German, Cena Vega, because there were things that I missed that I couldn't eat, like tacos. And I mean, you can have vegetarian tacos. Oh, corn, guys, corn. I'm gonna just tell you. Cena Vegan is the only place where they have like the most organic corn hand-pressed tortillas that I can eat. I don't eat tortilla shells. I don't eat tortillas, chips. The corn, I will say, causes me a lot of pain. It does not move through. It's a no for me. No corn. What else did I realize? Oh, yes, guys, white rice is not the same for everybody, but I found when I finally moved here, there's this place not too far that has this bomb vegan bowl with white rice. But the way they do their white rice is like so, it's kind of a sticky Asian white rice. I realized white rice caused me discomfort when it is trying to digest. Then I saw this long infomercial about rice and how brown rice, white rice, all the same, right? Rice has 3 layers. Third layer, of course, is you have the hulks, and when you remove that, you have the brown rice. When you remove the other layer, you have the white rice. I mean, they're literally the same. It's just like outer, middle, inner. But if rice is grown where there's a lot of livestock and a lot of the fecal matter of the livestock gets into the water, and they're using this water that has like toxicity and fecal matter in it, because rice takes a lot of water to grow, the rice actually is not healthy for you. But if you are growing rice that is in an area that's far away from animal farms and livestock cattle farms, then there's a huge difference. One thing he suggested was that Palestinian rice is some of the best rice, and people don't realize that those carbs, the white rice, really, I mean, there's no nutritional value. In actuality, there really isn't. And I will definitely talk about rice in another video, because I saw something that was crazy about rice. And sometimes you get a bag of rice and half of it is rice and half of it isn't. And if something says fortified, and that, like, it's really crazy, but I'll do a whole nother video on that. But basically, I realized that I had to cut out white rice as well. But anyway, support and feed, I would go ahead and make some donations, and I would purchase meals from the restaurants. And this is how I was able to have like all vegan Mexican food, vegan German food. Guys, when I tell you, there is a difference in the taste of like all vegan food opposed to food that is not vegan and plant-based. And I asked my niece one day, because she went to Cordon Bleu for a short time, I said, I had a realization about meat and dairy products and their byproducts. If it is not quality, the dairy and the meat spoils the food. Meat broth, dairy, butters, spoils the food. If it's not a top quality ghee, clarified butter, it spoils the food. She said, yeah. She said, dairy has to be quality. She says, meat, top quality meat can be prepared a certain way, and it shouldn't even be like marinated or have certain, like, covered in spices and covered in salt. She was like, top quality meat has even a certain taste to it. And I realized this when I started eating the vegan food from the restaurants. When I tell you, there's something so alive about the food, but there's something so unspoiled tasting about the food that I was eating like I don't even have the words to explain how good that food was. And then over time, like I said, it's been over a year for me. I would go places, because sometimes I'd be like, oh man, I want some ceviche, oh, you know. And I went to this one place, and your nose begins to really tune in and become aware of the smell of the meat. And you're like, that don't smell good. The fish, it don't smell good. And I went, one time I was in, this is what happened. So I went to 85 Degree Bakery, right? The lady messed up on my drink. She didn't put soy milk in it. She put dairy milk in it. I didn't know this, right? So I'm driving off. I take a sip of my iced coffee. Oh my gosh. Talk about your taste buds fully knowing the difference at this point. And not only that, guys, sorry if this is TMI, but your smell and your taste buds change so much that when I tasted that dairy milk in the coffee, it tasted like liquid poop. it tasted like liquid poop. Like it was like a twin, and I couldn't believe. I was like, I've been having dairy in my milk all these years. Then I went to this place. This is a very, very good Mexican place, and I wanted some caldo, pescado, right? I was just craving it. And it's like that. I mean, it's like that. Because for a long time, even with veganism, I was holding on to the salmon until I saw Seaspiracy on Netflix. And I'd be at the store looking at the salmon. I'd just be like, I don't even know if you had cancer on you. They probably cut the cancer off of you. But your stomach just starts to turn at some point. And you're just like, no, you can't even buy it. One time I had bought salmon. Sorry if I'm all over the place, you guys. And I got to this chewy part, and I was like, I had to spit it out. I couldn't even, I mean, it's crazy, guys. It's really crazy, but things change. Change inside of you. So, back to the restaurant. I had the caldo. And I had this other thing with like some seafood because it was a Marisco place. Listen, when they brought me the food, I could smell the unfreshness of dead seafood. I was like, I could smell, like before, I would not have been able to like really smell what I was smelling. But guys, listen, it is not food that is alive. Period. These animals, when they go to the slaughter, whether it's pork or the beef or whatever, it's just like us when we experience fear, whether we're on a roller coaster or whether someone literally suddenly points a gun right in the middle of our eyes and you experience fear. And the thing is, oh shoot, dying. The thing is, they experience that thing right before they go to the slaughter. The fear and anxiety burst through their tissue, and that's what we're eating. That's what we're taking in. So I'm going to talk more about this in other videos. It's so much to say. But say what you need to say in the comment section. If you've had to make a choice about going vegan, I want to know your story. But recipes are coming. More and more about this is coming. And I can't wait to show you guys what my routine is. God bless. I love you. Okay. Bye-bye.